All right, we are up. This is I believe it's episode 63 of the Our Town podcast. And I only say I believe so because I've been trying to catch up. I've been recording 2 a week. And I would love to do it every day. I don't really have the time to do it every day. I would love to do it every day. And so sometimes I get too far ahead and I just released episode 59 this week with Chad Emerson. And you're 63, so I'm probably going to have to catch up and probably do 2 a week. Because I don't want it to be too stale, right? I do like currency, and if there's something that's happening in the world, it would be nice if people could put an egg. Oh, that happened then, right? But this is things are really starting to take shape, and I'm really happy about it. And I will have to mention right away, I'm a new platinum sponsor, TPG Incorporated. And you'll see by the time this comes out, of course, it'll be old news, but because you and I are talking right now, this is Bill Collins, and I'll introduce him here formally in a second. But TPG and Lisa DeFalco, the CEO, she created the industry for quality assurance. So when you call United Airlines or I know that's one of their customers, or Toyota, or any company that has a customer contact center, call center, in the 90s, you could physically listen in, but that's the only way you could do it. They were not recording calls at that time. And of course the technology really wasn't there. And even if the technology was there to record it, the storage, the amount of data, and Bill Collins, our guest today, he's going to know a little bit about this and when we get into PokerCows, but it just wasn't there. And of course now we live in a cloud world and you can store video like crazy. And things like recording phone calls, and she said 15 million calls a month or something like that they're in charge of. That's a lot. That's a lot of back end infrastructure to support that. But she as Lisa DeFalco invented the phrase, your call may be monitored for quality assurance purposes, and that set off a whole new thing where regulation and policies and things had to be put in place. The law had to be changed or modified, right, to allow this, so people could, they had to kind of give their consent, and then of course that's really helped. It's really helped businesses to know, hey, what are our customers saying when they call in and they have a problem? So TPG Incorporated, thanks to them, they're our platinum sponsor for the next several episodes. Well, today we have Bill Collins, and if we go back to episode 3, Bill Neiland. And episode 3, Active 8 Communications. So we'll give a shout out to him and his company. They did a commercial for my normal employer, Mantech, last year. Mm-hmm. They created a commercial for us. And so then I had started the podcast, and I was like, and I was looking for guests. Like, hey, Bill, would you like to come on? And he really wanted to give the opportunity to one of his employees. And so he had one of his account managers, Morgan Vick, come on, and it was a good experience for her. We had a great conversation. You can check that out on episode 3. And so, we just kind of keep in touch. I know he's a big golfer. Bill's a big golfer. And at some point I get an email from Bill Neiland saying, you really got to meet my friend Bill Collins. He's a trip. He's just a great guy. And he has this interesting company, or this concept, this idea that he's trying to get off the ground called PokerCows. And that had me at the name, PokerCows. So I have to inquire. So I reached out to Bill Collins. We spoke on the phone, and I booked him, and here we are.
Here I am. So
Bill, first and foremost, and how you doing today?
Doing great.
Drove over from Hampton Cove?
Yes, I did.
So talk about, how do you know Bill Neiland first? Let's start there.
When I went searching for a marketing group,
yeah,
and I talked to several, and Active 8 stood out. I liked the vibe, and I've been working with them for close to a year now.
So, who is it? Just Bill, or do you work with Russ?
I've worked with Bill, with Russ, with Michael, with Carly, with Savannah, with the whole crew over there.
That's awesome.
I work with all of them.
Do you? I know he belongs to Huntsville Country Club. Have you played golf with him?
I have not played golf with him. We've talked about it, but no, we have not played together.
You know, and I'll give. Yesterday, I saw a post. They Activate participated in some charity kickball game, and most of my interactions with Bill were just over Zoom or WebEx or something like that, where we have a virtual meeting because we met every week for a couple months, talking about the commercial we wanted created. And I knew he was tall. I mean, I had met him at one point, but then I see this picture yesterday. I'm like, man, this guy's he's like an athlete. I don't know if he's 6'3" or he's 6'4", but just kind of the way he was standing and stuff. So that guy was probably like a quarterback or something in his day. And I just wasn't sure if you had spent any personal time with him.
No, I have not golfed with him, but I hear that the kickball game was a lot of fun.
Yeah. No injuries, no hamstring pulls.
Well, I won't go that far, but
I think it's one thing to go running and exercise, and maybe you won't pull something, but to kick something, if you're not regularly kicking a ball, that could do some damage to your leg. So let's just do kind of a primer first of PokerCows.
Okay.
And then I think we're going to use a lot of this time to also explore. So it's not like you've spent your whole career trying to develop an online gaming virtual experience.
No, it actually was more of a, I don't want to use the word accident, but it was our regular home poker group. We're not Hold'em players. We're a dealer's choice group, and we don't play that often. We play maybe 3 or 4 times a year.
Okay.
Everybody's so busy. And
they're spread out? Are these
we have one that has moved to Orange Beach, but and that kind of plays into the way PokerCows was set up. It's when COVID hit, we couldn't get together to play poker, and I asked my son. He had just gotten out of college and he's an excellent coder. And I said, man, can you just design this one game that we play and gamble and have a good time on? And it's called 727. And I said, I hear that this company Twilio, it's real easy to integrate the video in with it. I said, I liked the game and the video, and within a couple of days, he had that one game for us, and I called up my friends. I mean, it was very basic. It's not formatted on the screen or anything like that. It was just
right.
The videos everywhere and cards next to the videos. And me and my buddies got together, and we played that one game for hours and hours. And it was so much fun. It was just like we were sitting there together. And, most home poker games, there's a little drinking and having a big time and a lot of laughs. And one of the guys commented during the game, he's like, there might be a market for this. And I was like, dude, I'm 10 steps ahead of you on this. I'm already thinking about the way the platform would be laid out. And
yeah.
So from there, it was in slow development with my son doing a lot of the coding. And after about 6 months, it became apparent that we needed to get some more help, that this was not a one coder kind of project.
Yeah.
So we brought in somebody with experience in gaming. And for 2 years, it slowly developed. I had a regular job. I owned and managed apartment complexes over in Decatur, and didn't have the time or energy to put into PokerCows. But I ended up selling those last year, and when I sold those properties, it opened up a lot of spare time and some capital to pursue PokerCows, and then we went full steam ahead with it. And we've been in beta testing. We're still adding some tweaks to it, but it's basically just it's a platform for friends. It's
Sure.
really it has Texas Hold'em, but our group doesn't even play Texas Hold'em. We may play a couple of hands,
Right.
but we don't do a full rotation like most Hold'em. We don't do tournament play. None of that. We're old guys, you know.
Yeah.
We're in our 50s and 60s, if that's old guys. And
So one natural question is, you were only going to play 3 or 4 times a year in person for whatever reasons, but now this is allowing you. How quickly did you realize, hey, we should start doing this weekly or daily? Or
we still play every few months, and that's strictly from the standpoint of the game maturing, adding features, and I'll say, okay, we've
yeah,
done a major upgrade. Let's get together, test this out, guys. But what I really did not expect is we have not played together in person in 3 years since we've had this software.
yeah,
It's just easier to get everybody's time coordinated. We've got one guy that used to be a regular in our group that moved to Orange Beach, so he can play. I surely didn't expect that it would take over for our in-person game, but it has. It's just easier, and frankly, at the end of every poker game, the group is so happy because there's no drinking and driving. You're at home already.
Yeah.
It's a convenient, and it's like, well, that was fun, guys. See you next time.
Yeah.
Click, and you're gone.
right.
And so yeah.
So explain. I've never heard of it. Did you say it was called 727?
727. That is
Explain that game.
It is a game where it's a split pot game. You go for the highest hand and the lowest hand.
Okay.
And you try to get the closest to 7 or 27. And aces can be 1 or 11. So the perfect hand would be a 5 and 2 aces. That would be both 7 and 27.
Perfect. Okay.
So you could try to scoop the pot.
Where the ace acts as a 1 and an 11.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's an excellent game. It gets a lot of action going, and the great thing about split pot games is people stay in.
Yeah.
It encourages everybody to stay in the game. It's a friendly atmosphere. Nobody's going to go broke playing these home spread limit games as opposed to with no limit hold'em. It's a totally different atmosphere.
And how many cards are dealt at the outset of the game when you're playing 727?
Either 2 or 3. You can play both versions of it, and you get 1 down and 1 up.
Okay.
Or 2 down and 1 up.
So somewhat similar, rooted in blackjack, where are you asking for a card and
you're asking for a card, and yes, and if you don't take a card for 3 consecutive times when it's your turn, you're locked out and you can't take any more cards.
Okay.
But it's one of
and then that down card is like blind until the end, until the reveal.
Exactly.
So you really have no idea.
That's right.
Wow.
And with the 3 card version, if you've got 2 cards down, and if you've got 2 cards down and your up card's a 3,
yeah, people
are going to assume that you're going low. But that's not necessarily the case. You could have an ace, 2 aces, or you could have an ace and a 10. You could get 24. Anyway, it's a fun game.
Yeah.
It gets a lot of action.
Sure. Let's do this. I want to show your video from your website.
Oh God. Okay.
And there's so many. I have so many interests in what we're going to talk about today at PokerCows. And so some of that is even hosting a podcast. Like, oh, well, we have a set. Like what are you going to be sitting in? And what's going to be, behind me? And so some of this is just analyzing. And I'm going to ask you about what was your thought process and what you wanted to be in that, as people will see here shortly, the chair you're sitting in and the background and all that kind of stuff. And then after we play it, I want to circle back, and I actually did some still shots of the shot where you are talking, where you actually see the layout, and you've got the people dialed in. So I basically, in a nutshell, I'm just as interested in all the thought that went into the planning and the production of it, because it's only a minute long, but it's all very detailed, right? Or it was heavily thought through. What is it you're trying to convey in that minute? So let's go ahead and watch it.
Sounds good. Hi, I'm Bill Collins, the creator of PokerCows.com. If you're new here, welcome. PokerCows is home to 15 different games with wild cards and other options. You've probably played a lot of these games, like High Chicago, Follow the Queen, and Pass the Trash. If you don't recognize the names, chances are you'll recognize the games. Getting started is easy. Number 1, choose your host. This will be the person who sets up the poker table and invites the other players to the game. Number 2, enter the game code provided by your host. You simply type it in on PokerCows.com or by clicking a provided link. Number 3, enable your camera and microphone. Make sure you enable your camera so that your friends can see your face when you're bluffing and call you out on all your bullshit. And that's it.
I love it.
Yeah, I liked it too, and you can thank our friends at Activate.
Oh, they're the ones who made it.
Absolutely.
Oh, that was so cool. So then they really, what was the requirement you gave them when you said, okay, I want to do this promo, if instructional in a way?
I left it to them. I said I want to do instructional is exactly what it was. I said I want it to convey how super easy it is to get on, because I think people naturally have older people in particular have a fear of technology, I would think. And it's very easy. We wanted to make it as simple as possible to get onto the game and get things set up and going.
So I've brought up a still shot from the beginning, right? And so this is the brainchild of Activate, where they said, okay, you're going to sit in this chair. It looks like a throne, but I don't think it's a throne. It's like a picture in the background, right?
No, it's actually a big chair, like a throne. Is
Really?
Exactly what it is. Yes. And when they first had the concept, and they're like, yeah, we're going to get a smoking jacket for you. And I was like, come on, guys. Are you sure? And finally, I just said, okay, you guys are the marketing company. I'm going to give y'all control. I'll have a few words to throw in here and there. But
Okay.
yeah, it's I think they've done a good job.
And you're a cigar
aficionado? Actually, I don't drink. I used to drink 12 years sober now, but
okay.
I'll have an occasional cigar. It was just kind of part of the, it's, I guess the Hugh Hefner type touch with the robe, and I don't know. I saw one of the test groups recorded themselves, and I was reviewing the video, and somebody was asking. They said, "Hey, do you think that guy in that video is the owner of the company or spokesperson or what?" And one of the other guys says, "I'm not sure, but it looks like he's trying to be the most interesting man in the world, but he looks like the most uninteresting man in the world." So,
how many takes did it take?
Actually, only I think 2.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think this may actually be the very first one, and then we did a couple of others, but I think the first may have been the one that we
Did you have a script behind you that you were reading from?
I had a teleprompter.
Okay.
That was flying by that I was trying to keep
up.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to pull up a different still shot. Now let's get into the actual mechanics of the of PokerCows. So there is a still shot we just took from the video where it came up, and I am duly impressed with what I see here. There's a lot of effort, I know, like, my brother's in the Hollywood unions, and I know that there's a tremendous amount of effort, and he's worked a lot with big podcasts, like really when podcasts were first starting, and designing and building sets and studio sets for some of the largest, podcasts where they have live 1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million viewers, things like that. And they're highly professionally, set up. And there's these forums that go on quite regularly where people, the creators, the designers, if you will, for the lighting, video, sound. And now we get into the software element, the Zoom, right? If you're going to use Zoom as the platform or whatever the underlying technology is that's serving up the ability to have all these webcams get tied in, they spend a tremendous amount of time talking about that and trying to improve it because they saw that as the future. So here we are now. We're in the future, and Bill Collins's PokerCows represents an output of that, right? Or some of these test cases of, hey, can you do this, and can you really also make it look really professional, and can people play games with one another, right, using webcams? So,
and do they want to?
And do they want to?
And that's I think a bigger question is, do people? It's an interesting situation because I know.
Just make sure you get behind the mic.
It's an interesting situation because groups that don't know each other, I know that there's a couple of platforms out there that have tested video with Hold'em, and the problem that they had was the people just kept their cameras off because they weren't friends. They were playing with strangers. They didn't want that exposure. But when you're playing with friends, it's a different ball game.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, half the fun that we have is the stuff that goes on in back of the people that when we're playing the poker game, it's like, hey, was that your wife that just walked in?
You got to make fun of whatever shirt they're wearing, or they didn't comb their hair.
Absolutely, we have a lot of fun with the video, and
so what we're looking at on this screen right now. I know earlier in 727 you had talked about an initial concept. Certainly, this is a graduation from that, right? This is an advancement from there of what we're looking at.
Absolutely.
I guess my initial question is, who are all the people in there? I'm assuming these are friends, or
they are the two in the upper left are friends. The others are actually actors that Activate brought in. I have a lot of video of me and my friends playing, but I think they wanted to.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what game are we looking at?
That looks like Iron Cross with the
7-card Iron Cross, high-low.
Correct. And there's other platforms out there that will do similar to this. The video, the quality that we've got, I think, is superior. Mm-hmm. But the big difference is we have the crazy dealer's choice games, whereas most people are Hold'em and Omaha players these days. And I'm really, I think, just looking for a niche market that is people that want to play games with. We have wild cards, which, as far as I know, there's no other online games that you can go to and play where you can designate wild cards and actually play games like Low Chicago, where low spade splits the pot with the high hand. A lot of these are what I would call, I guess, old school games. But it's an interesting platform for sure.
Now, right now on this screen, I keep doing that. Sorry, too many buttons. Everyone has paid $4. It's $4 to buy in. It's kind of, you see there on the right. It's probably easier for you.
Yes.
And no cards are revealed yet, so we're kind of at the starting point.
Correct. What you're looking at right there is 6 players, and they have all anteed $1. So you can see at the top the $6 pot.
Okay.
And it has gone around the table, and everybody has checked in this particular video. It's a real interesting system because it's got in the bottom there, you'll see it's actually got like chips, whereas Most of your other online platforms have got slider bars. They're designed for hold'em, and this one it actually it's just like being in a real poker game. And the things that really separate it are like in that lower left there, you see the host controls. When you go into host controls, it actually gives you the ability to do things like, okay, let's say one of the players gets up to go to the bathroom, to make a drink, make a sandwich, whatever. And in a typical home game, the person will say, "Hey, throw me in. I'm in," and they'll just get up for a few minutes. Well, this actually enables the host to go in, and he can actually throw in for them.
Really?
He can never see their cards or anything, but he can act for them. He can check. He can call. He can fold for them if a player. And it's happened in our group. I mean, anything you can imagine has happened, and we've added features to account for it. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
I gotta go, oh, my wife's calling, I gotta go. And they get up and they leave in the middle of a hand.
Yeah.
They haven't folded, they haven't X'd out of the game, and you're like sitting there stuck. So we were like, we got to do something about that. So we gave the host the ability to fold players, to remove them from the table.
Act as a proxy.
Exactly. And it's just like in a home game. Whereas, you know, can you imagine in a hold'em tournament, the host being able to go, okay, I'll just bet for him.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
it wouldn't happen.
Yeah. So that's nice that you have the ability to change the features, I guess, right, along the way. And that's typical with software development and agile development, right? Is you have all of these ideas and you put those in backlog and you determine a release schedule, right? When I'm talking about the developers that you've hired, right? And I'm sure that as you worked with them, you've learned about how their methodology works.
Yes.
And they probably say, you need to prioritize what feature you want to see first, right?
We use Trello. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I've heard of it.
It's like a software. I think it's just a software development scheduling type application. And we have had thousands of Trello cards. Every time something comes up, we make a card and track it, and then it all funnels down into the development stage. Okay, this is the funnel for the beta version 1, beta version 2, actual launch. Yeah, it's staggering the amount of cards that get processed to correct bugs and things of that nature. And I think I'm no coder, but the last I heard, the software had over 70,000 lines of code. That seems like a lot to me.
Yeah.
But
And so, your background was not in IT or software development. By the way, are your headphones working okay?
yes,
Mine are not. I'm going to have to change it, but that's okay. There's been a slow death on these ones that I'm wearing. But so your background was in real estate and management consulting or things like that.
correct. I do have a little bit of a tech background.
Okay.
I had a database management company, and
Oh, wow.
the first company I started was up at Vanderbilt, and it started out as it's really cool. It started out as wanting to get term papers, getting papers typed up. You know, I don't know how it works these days. In the old days, you paid somebody $1 a page and they typed up your paper for you. Well,
because somebody gave you a handwritten and it needed to be typed.
Yes,
right.
I mean that's the way it was in the old days. And I put an ad out, and this was when modems had first come out. This was late, early 80s, maybe 80, 81, something like that. And the old 300 baud modems. And I put an ad out, and I said, type from home and make money. And I tied in people around Nashville that would type at home, and then they would send it to our computer. We would do edits. It was it was very difficult with the technology that was available at the time. But that actually morphed into we started doing a lot of resumes, and the next thing I knew, people were like, "Do y'all happen to have a list of tech companies XYZ that I can send my resume to?" Well, that led to us creating some databases, and heck, the next thing I knew, we were managing a doctor's list for Hospital Corporation of America and several other companies. So I guess the point is I do have a little bit of a tech background, but that's one that, oh gosh, that was a nightmare. It ended up morphing. Then it was like, oh, and can you mail these out for me? So the next thing I knew, we're like a vertically integrated from typing up your resume, giving you the companies to send it to, and we'll mail it for you. And oh god, I'm glad those days are over. That was
were the people they had to send it via modem, right?
They did.
Via their computer, or somehow. That's like even hurting my head to remember. Like, was WordPerfect around? Was like like Windows QDOS?
WordPerfect was not around, I don't think, at that time. We were using something, I think it was called Infomix software, the smart system, and we actually went in and wrote our own word processing software. And I was like, God, this is ridiculous, guys. Let's just use one of these. Everything was so new then. It was Lotus 1, 2, 3. There was no Excel. It was the very infancy of personal computers.
Yeah. Now you'd have AI. AI would just write your paper.
Yes.
You wouldn't have to do anything.
That's right.
Just do this for me.
But it's funny to show you the demand for. One thing I found very interesting was when I put that ad out there, I had so many responses, just overwhelmed with responses, and a lot of housewives that were saying that they had children, they were at home now, and that what a blessing that they could now work from home. And now look at the world.
40 years later.
Yeah, now we are working from home, and it's the technology just makes it so easy.
So let's go back to the part of the story where you sell the apartments in Decatur, and COVID happens, and it kind of, I don't want to say forces you, but you're like, I see this opportunity. I want to start PokerCows. What were some of those first steps? I guess it was contacting your son.
Well, he was actually living with me at the time. Okay. So, I was like, hey, can you do this? And he's like, sure, no big deal. And he knocked that out. And the first step that I did was I called an attorney.
Okay.
And I said, a gaming attorney out of Maryland that I had read an article he had written. He was involved with a lot of professional poker players and defending them on cheating charges, whatever's going on in the poker world. And I called him just to make sure that I was on sound legal ground having a gambling platform like this. And he said, as long as there's no actual cash within the game, you're fine. So that's where it started. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to run into any legal problems. And once I got that okay, we proceeded and slowly but surely started developing the platform and brought in some pretty sharp coders. And
so real quick, you went, you knew about this attorney just following the news and some of the litigation and things that he was involved in.
I did. I Googled gaming attorneys.
Got it.
And then I found an article that he was mentioned in, and actually, I think the article was on Poker News or something. He was talking about.
I wonder if I know in Maryland that they finally. I shouldn't say finally. They were one of those states that have legalized gambling, and it was a big deal when they brought MGM to the. I think it's the National Harbor. So you cross over, you leave Virginia, cross this bridge, the Woodrow Wilson Bridge, and you end up in MGM has a huge casino and hotel there, and the Marriott. There's Gaylord is there, but I remember I think this is early 2000s where it was quite the thing where they brought gaming tables legalize gambling to Maryland. So maybe this guy had something to do with that, and that was the byproduct of that, right? And
I'm
he
not
was
sure.
turned to.
I just had to get back in contact with him because
So then, does your son help you with like, okay, presumably he's going to get too busy, whatever. He's got other stuff going on, and you really want to take this to another level, and you need to hire now, like a dedicated development team. Does he give you the advice, or how do you know how to reach out and attract and recruit these developers to help you?
we went on to. I spoke with my son, and he said, this is really getting to be more than I'm qualified to handle.
Right.
He thought he could do it. When you're young and 22 years old, you think you can.
Yeah, I got this.
Right. Sure. How difficult can it be?
Yeah.
But I told him, I said, because I had used Upwork previously. I don't know if you're familiar with Upwork. It's you can go on to Upwork and find anything for whatever you need.
Like crowdsourcing.
Exactly. Whatever you need labor-wise, you'll find. If you're looking for a coder, you'll find them anywhere from $8 an hour to $1,000 an hour, depending on their level of expertise. And I told my son, I said, find somebody that's qualified. And he's like, oh, Dad, these things are so expensive. And I was like, trust me. And this is a good life lesson. You're usually going to get what you pay for.
Yeah.
You're better off getting somebody that's expensive and knows what they're talking about. So we got a Harvard graduate computer guy that had done game development, and he headed up the development team and put his group together. And I've been working with them for close to 3 years now.
Wow.
The last year extensively. I mean, once I sold the apartments last year, that's when the development, I had the time and the desire and the capital to really pursue this. And I said, okay, it's time to quit just pussyfooting around and bring this thing to market, for better or for worse. And that's pretty much where we are now.
And do you have any idea where they live, where they're spread out?
Oh, yes. I think a couple are in San Fran, a couple are in, well, heck, my UX guy is down near Tampa. Another guy is in Virginia. I think one's in New Zealand now.
Wow.
I mean,
That's cool.
a couple of these guys, they've worked on it with us for close to 3 years. And one in particular, they just, if they want to go live in New Zealand for 6 months, they do. Because they can code from anywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, to be young in today's world, to be able
Isn't that amazing that we live in a world where your development team is virtual and then what you're producing is for virtual, right?
Right.
Like in theory, you could go through this whole thing and never meet any of those people in person, nor any of the people that play the game.
That's exactly right.
You're just the mad scientist guy working in your office in Hampton Cove.
Yes,
in Huntsville, Alabama.
And it's funny you say that because nearly all poker groups, from what I have read, you'll have one or two guys that have a little bit too much to drink, and they kind of put a damper on. They get a little bit out of control, and one of the guys that was playing with us, he was raving about the game, and he's like, man, the best thing about this game is that it's like I'm sitting right there next to you. And I said, no, the best thing about it is that you're not.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, it's got a lot of advantages.
So what's the plan for promotion? How do you it seems like an easy question, right? People ask me, how are you going to get that podcast out there, right? Like, it's really difficult. I
have said from day one that the most difficult part of this will be finding the market, if there is a market, because I know the niche for our group, the niche that I see is people like our group, that we're not big hold'em players, but we do want to play our games, and it really enables people around the country I mean, I've played with old buddies now several times around the country, and we have a blast.
Yeah.
But from a marketing standpoint, again, Activate, they've set up all the social media accounts. We're getting ready to. What I started to say a second ago is I had to call the attorney that I originally talked to 3 years ago because Facebook requires a legal letter saying that you don't need a gambling license to run this game. So Facebook, Google Ads,
Yeah.
it's influencers, you name it.
Word of mouth.
We're getting ready to kind of test the waters in a lot of different ways and look for some data to point us in the best direction to go with it.
You know, before you showed up, I just noticed that at Von Braun this weekend is the comic and gaming convention. Are you going to that?
I am not. I saw last night that William Shatner was going to be in town for it.
It's like celebrities will be in attendance.
Yeah.
Is that something? Are you ready to go to like a trade show type thing and have a booth and showcase this?
Not yet. And I'm not even sure that's the way I want to go.
Yeah.
You know, this is such a unique. I don't know. The market study, I ran a market study before I got too deep into this, and the market study was extremely encouraging.
Sure.
And then we did alpha testing. It was just small. It's like 30 different groups played, and the feedback was all positive from them. But it's a tough market to find.
Yeah.
It really is.
So from a revenue standpoint, it sounds like, so you talk to the attorney says as long as there's no game exchange within the game itself, so then it's a subscription model. Is that true?
That is exactly the way
you're going to
we're
pay
looking at it now.
$30 a month or $20 a month for the chance to just play with known people. You don't have to feel, if you don't like to go into public spaces, you don't really like casinos. I mean, you know, the casinos are interesting. It's interesting that people, right, when you see the cross section of America go into a casino. But so you know that can be a difficult or scary thing. You know, it's just like sometimes buying a used car. People don't like that experience at all, and so maybe it's just, hey, cool, I will pay $50 a month for the chance to just play virtually with people, and they'll become my friends, and that's the world we live in.
Right now, the platform, and I'm getting. Everybody asks, they're like, well, why don't you just open it up for play by everybody? And we may just eventually do that. But for now, I'm trying to make it where it's just, they're all private tables. Mm-hmm. It's not like you're going to get on the platform. Like if you go to PokerStars or any of the big boys, you know, you go on there, you sit down at a table, you don't know the people you're playing with. They do have like home game modes and things like that you can set up, but this one is specifically designed to play with friends.
Yeah. Now, one other aspect that's important from a platform, I guess, perspective is it's only from a PC or a laptop. It's not modified or adapted to work on a phone. Is that accurate? Or
that's semi-accurate. You can play it on a phone right now. It's not optimized for a phone. We are making some adjustments, but the way this originally started.
Yeah, I know what you're going to answer, but go ahead.
It's just me and my buddies.
Yeah.
We all had we're sitting at our desktop or our desktop computers or our laptops, or a lot of people play on iPads. You just don't get the same experience on a phone.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have the large You can't see your buddies laughing. I mean, you can see they're so tiny.
Yeah.
But
I would imagine if you're trying to really if you're trying to replace the experience of being in person, whether that's in a casino or at your buddy's house, right, just poker night, you would probably want to be comfortable. If you're a drinker, you've got a drink in your hand, you're smoking a cigar, whatever, you're in your home. Hopefully, because you're not going to drive after the fact, right? We talked about that earlier. And you set up a laptop comfortably, right? And now you can really interact. You're not distracted. It's not designed for you to be in the car, passively trying to do this thing, and nobody can see it. I'm sure it does, right? But it ruins that true cards experience. And I know that you turn your camera on so we can see your face. You talked about that at the end of that promo video. We know when you're bluffing, but otherwise, it's meant to be a fully engaging experience.
And it is.
Yeah.
It's very surprising how realistic it is. Like you're sitting there with your buddies.
Yeah. Our family. Do you ever play Jackbox.tv?
No.
Well, it occurred to me we play this game. It's called. There's just different games, and you do it from your phone, and you go to Jackbox.tv, and but you have to have a computer. So a computer will like tie to the TV through an HDMI cable. So there's a computer that's like now the host, and you tell it what game you're going to play. There's all these party packs. There's ones where you tell jokes and you write jokes, and it helps you like that process. And then it's your joke for someone else's, and then everybody else judges whose joke was better. Mm-hmm. Then there's ones like about detecting who's the liar, and
Right.
there's one where you do a T-shirt design contest. And a lot of these things are you do something, someone else does something, they judge them, and then ultimately at the end there's an ultimate winner who was the most creative, whatever. They're a lot of fun. And it just occurred to me like, well, wait a minute, Poker is really no different, where there's a host, there's a room code, it's a private room, and you're just playing cards. And I think you're more than onto something. And somebody has to be the trailblazer, right? Somebody has to be the early adopters to these things. And there might be some other stuff that is going on, but to your point, they may be going down, they're just chasing the popular Hold'em. That's like the hot, sexy game, right? And they're Poker Stars, and there's all these TV shows about that. But in comes the sleeper. What about all the other games? Old Chicago, 727. I think you're onto something, man.
Well, I hope you're right.
I do.
Yeah, I think it. Again, one of the groups that had videoed and submitted their video of their testing play. One of the guys, I'll never forget, they were trying to figure out what game they were playing. And he goes, "What are we playing?" And one of the guys goes, "I'm not sure, but I kind of like it." And this was a group that was all Hold'em players.
Yeah.
That they just never experienced a different type of game. I hate to generalize, but when most Hold'em players hear dealer's choice, they immediately think dealer's choice games that are offered at casinos, because there are dealer's choice games at casinos, but they're not as wacky and crazy as ours. Some purist of poker would die if they saw my platform, but others will love it.
Yeah,
it's just designed for. It's not designed for people that are serious. When you turn on World Series of Poker, those guys are dang serious.
Oh, sure.
And
they're willing to sit there for days.
And most people that, again, I'm generalizing, but most people, they think that they're the next great poker star. That they can go from their home computer to playing, and they can, but it's just very rare. But it's just a serious group.
Sure. Tell me about what else you did. You owned a company with a database company, you said, that just kind of grew out of typing, and it just took on a life of its own. But
yes.
Give me an idea of some other things, highlights that you did in your career that you're kind of most proud of.
Oh gosh. Oh.
You graduated from. Well, you didn't graduate from Vanderbilt.
I didn't, but I had a really good time there.
That's right. And it wasn't until later that you went to UNA.
Correct.
Right, and got a degree, and then Athens State.
Correct. I went to UNA, Athens State, got the master's degree and the BS and all that. And
was that because there was something missing in your career?
It was because I had done a deal in North Carolina that was very profitable, but I did not manage it. And
come a little closer.
It ended up having financial difficulties, and I ended up bankrupt in that company. I had to. It was
really.
I had a partner, and by the time I was able to get my partner out, it was just there was no saving it. And it taught me. I said I won't get in anything like that again unless I'm managing it. And so that was interesting. That was one of those. I was fairly young, in my young to mid 30s, something like that. And so after that, I said, I may have to find a job somewhere. and I'd better go back and get my education completed. Well, in the interim, some things popped up over in Decatur in the apartment business. We had one apartment project over there that the manager was ill, and my dad asked me to go over and take a look at it while she was in the hospital. And I hadn't been over there in years. And when I went in, there were no computers. It was just ledger cards. And I took that project and turned it around very quickly and leveraged that one to do another deal and found myself in the apartment business. And it was a lot of fun, very rewarding to see improvements to a property. Love love having the residents thank you, and they're like,
Yeah.
thank you so much for doing this or this and this. And every building a community was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
So then after you hadn't lost sight of the fact that, hey, at some point I am going to go back to school, but the apartment thing, like I'm going to ride this out. It's good. I'm involved. And then when that finished, then you go back to school.
Well, the school kind of fell in between
Okay.
gigs, we'll
Okay.
say.
Okay.
And then right when I completed the school, it didn't come into play. It was when the Huntsville had just been named the contract capital for government here, and so I got like an acquisitions and contract management specialty, and ended up not using it at all. And I'm very grateful that I didn't have to. That real estate was a lot of fun. I enjoyed managing and developing apartments.
That sounds, yeah. How big, how many units were there?
221. Small, but enough.
Yeah. Like 3 level?
2 level.
2 level.
Yeah.
And they're just going, man, the apartment game right now is just going gangbusters.
It's insane.
You go towards Toyota Field and
It's
by the
insane.
driving range. The whole driving range is just
Yes.
encircled in apartment complexes going up.
It's crazy. I mean, driving out here today, I passed a couple that were under development. I was like, wow.
Is there
it's
anything
just
about
everywhere.
that growth that's teasing you or enticing you to get back into that game?
Absolutely nothing. No, I think I got out at a very good time. Cap
Okay.
rates were low, valuations were high,
Yeah.
and
Good for you.
yeah, it was. In fact, I talked to the guy that bought mine from me not 2 weeks ago, and he said, "Boy, did you get out at the right time." I was like, "Thank you." Interest rates have skyrocketed, so it's very hard to get the numbers to work like they did when
Yeah.
when interest rates were at 2 or 3% and you're financing deals. It's a lot easier than when you're paying 5.5 or 6.
Sure. I think south of Huntsville has this new concept where they're all standalone, like small single family home, like cottages, but it's all for rent.
Well, it's funny you say that because I spent about 2 years putting a deal together for Decatur that was that exact concept. It was little cottage homes around a lake, gated community, and I put a lot of effort into that. And then I had a very close friend that, out of the blue, was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And it kind of put things in perspective because I was working my butt off on this deal, and it was new construction. I knew it was going to be a pain dealing with all the politics involved, and so I dropped it. I mean, I had the financing put together. Everything was ready to go, and I said, it's just not worth it. But, yeah.
Just because of the permitting and
Oh,
just
gosh,
the
everything with new construction. I'm
Yeah.
really glad I didn't get into it because the cost of materials, the cost of labor, everything that's involved in these has skyrocketed.
yeah, it's true.
So yeah, I'm kind of glad that I didn't do it, but I think that it's a great concept. In fact, when I was driving out here today, one of the ones that I saw was exactly like that. It was going to be little single family homes, and they're all for rent.
Yeah.
It's in general, if a company, if you've got 150 homes, you can manage and take care of those a lot more efficiently than a single homeowner can. It's a great deal for the consumer.
Yeah.
You get all the benefits of ownership. You don't have people walking above you. You don't have people walking on the here. You don't hear them through the walls, but you don't have any repairs.
Yeah. That's a good thing.
That's a great thing.
I would think as we get closer and closer to being empty nesters, in theory, that's supposed to be about 2 years away, but we'll see.
Yeah, let me know how that works out.
But I'm also just thought, why don't we just downsize and go live in a condo somewhere downtown and just live life differently and stop worrying about if I can grow grass or not, or cutting this tree down or removing these shrubs. Like, right?
Yeah.
Having to paint the fence. We had to have our whole fence essentially replaced in all the sections. This house is about 12 years old. And now you got to stain the fence. You know, and like, well, do you buy a sprayer? Do you do it yourself? And I'm out there, like, took me probably like 4 hours to do 2 sides because everyone seems to have the same fence. And, you know, and it's all the same color. I don't know if that's an HOA thing.
Are y'all an HOA here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's definitely an HOA thing.
So then you're like, big paintbrush to do the big boards. And then I spent more time just tiny little paintbrush trying to get in and catch all the other, because they're like, you know, back to back slats, you know. And so I was like, this sucks.
Yeah, it does.
I hate home ownership sometimes.
Yeah. Yes. But I think that the rental home market is the future. It's very nice for the consumer, and it's an easier sell to the community. A lot of apartments used to have a bad rep, like, oh my gosh, I don't want an apartment complex in my neighborhood. Well, most people don't realize now that the median income on apartment dwellers has skyrocketed. People are leaning more towards renting than owning. It's the convenience.
What about like if a retiree, someone they're retired, do they want to? And assuming they move, let's just assume like the Florida, Alabama type retiree, right? Let's say they cashed out in New York, California, it doesn't matter, any part of the country, right? Let's say they made a decent amount on their house that they lived in for some time. Now they want to move to Alabama and be closer to family. Do you have any idea? Do they like the idea of just renting until they pass, or do they want to just take their cash and buy something and then of course will that to their family?
I think they're all different. I know in our apartments indicator, we had a lot of people that had moved from New York, from DC, that had moved down to this area to be with family.
Okay.
And they had chosen to rent. But I also know that with rents skyrocketing, that I was friends with my residents. We were small, and I was over there all the time. I know that they have recently purchased houses. Rents are skyrocketing.
Yeah. My mother lives in a assisted living over in Atlanta, and she just moved. She had a head injury, so it's not just age, but it's the combination now of like her age and her head injury, where she just can't, she can't live alone, but she's healthy. And so most of those people are much older than her. And the next step for them is, probably entering hospice and stuff like that for a lot of the residents. But she changed apartments, and she doesn't do well with change. And I guess the shower didn't work the way she thought it was supposed to work, and she couldn't take a shower, and then her dishwasher wasn't working. And she went down to the front desk and gave them the business.
Yes.
And just tore them, a new one, and then came back later and apologized because she was just frustrated. And it's always a very simple thing, like, what's wrong with the shower? And it's just user error. It's just something she doesn't know how to do.
They're almost always user error.
That's just happened yesterday, and I was like, oh, my poor mom. And those poor people, they saw another side of her.
Yes, somebody asked me. It's just going to sound horrible. They asked me. They said, "Would you ever consider doing senior housing?" And I was like, "No, thank you." You
Yeah.
know, whew, a lot of complaints for
Yeah.
sure.
You know, I had this job when I was 16 at we called it an old folks home, assisted living.
Yes.
And, you know, I worked in the restaurant. So after school, I'd go in there and why shouldn't I say, I worked in the kitchen of the restaurant. I wasn't old enough to be a waiter or a server. So my buddy and I, we were in charge of all the dishes and all the pots, right? So by the time we came in, the chef had already finished all the prep. And so we would clean up all the prep stuff. And then as the servers would serve all of the tenants, right, the residents, their meal, their dinner, and then we would clean the dishes and go home. But every now and then we would have to take food to a resident that was too ill to come to dinner that night. And it happened more than once where that person had died.
Oh,
And I had become friends with them, like Mrs. Sullivan. And I took Mrs. Sullivan her food probably every other week. She wasn't able to come down to dinner. And then one night I went and Mrs. Sullivan was gone. And I was like, I'm 16 years old, but I really felt bad, really kind of like tugged at my heartstrings,
Yeah.
You become friends with these people because they would be lined up at dinner wasn't until 5. They were lined up at 3:00, even probably 2:30, just sitting there waiting for dinner.
Yes.
Because they got nothing else to do.
Yes. Hey, go to bingo night and see how early they get there. I had a friend that works at an assisted living here in town, and he's like, "My God, for heaven's sakes, don't screw up the bingo game."
Oh, yeah.
They'll get you on that one.
So I know you like to golf.
I do. I'm an avid golfer.
I saw through your Hampton Cove Golf League, right?
Correct.
You've been involved with for years.
I was treasurer of that up until this year.
Were you?
And I decided it was time to let somebody else deal with that.
I thought I saw it might be 2018. I was trying to do some research on you, but Bill Collins is kind of that's not a completely common name, but sometimes it's hard to find
Right.
the real Bill Collins or William Collins or whatever. Are you a junior, by the way?
I am a junior.
Okay, I think your dad lived till he was 92. Is that right?
He died last year.
He died
in
last
fact,
year?
Yes.
Was he 92?
He was 90. Not actually, had just turned 93.
93.
Like a week before he died. A week before he died.
Well, that's a good long life. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, it was. Yep.
Were you guys close?
Extremely.
Okay.
My best friend.
Yeah.
Talked 2 or 3 times a day for sure. Yeah.
It was just natural causes.
Yeah, it's, at 93, you're pushing it there anyway. But he had gone in for a procedure that went well, and then they said, well, if he's having trouble swallowing, we're going to have to do a feeding tube. And then and his lungs couldn't handle the anesthesia. He came out of it. I mean, he was alert, but he was hooked up to things. And I was like, dude, do you want to live like this? And he was like, he gave me the shaking of the head no. So, but no, it was awesome having my father live that long, and he was sharp as a tack. All the way to the very end.
Really?
I mean, they were going through his medications when we were getting ready for his surgery, and he was like, "Well, don't forget my Viagra." And I was like, "Yes." 92 and
Still
asking for
jokes.
his Viagra. Yes.
You guys grew up here though, right? Did you spend most of your time in Alabama?
I spent a fair amount of time here. Born in Memphis, moved here like age 7 or 8, and then moved to Decatur then, and then moved over here. Like 12 or 13, and then stayed here through high school, and then went to Nashville for 15 years, and then moved back. So I've been
High school in Decatur?
high school here actually. I think it was the second graduating class ever from Randolph.
Okay.
It was a young school at that time.
Yeah. And then you talked about Nashville earlier, where you had gone up and gone to school and started a company, and then ultimately came back.
Correct.
Did you play golf with your dad?
Long ago.
Yeah.
He did come out and drive around in the cart with us, with me and my son. So we got some 3-generation golfing in together, which was nice.
And I think I read or saw, at least on your league, you were down to at least a 2 at one point handicap?
For 9 holes.
For 9 holes.
For 9 holes.
So 4.
Yes. And trust me, take that with a grain of salt. This is a league where you can move your ball. You can improve your lie.
Oh, you can improve your lie. Winner rules all the time.
Winter rules all the time. And I moved up to the senior tees because I've always been a short knocker, and it just got, you get your ass whooped so many times with your buddies from the further back tees. It's time to move up.
And are you always playing over at Hampton Cove?
I play there a lot. Play a lot. I like to travel, go on golf trips, play down at Orange Beach, play Pebble Beach. That's always nice.
How many times do you play Pebble?
4 now.
Wow.
And going back in October, I'll be there for Halloween this year.
Really?
Halloween at Pebble Beach ought to be fun.
Do you
maybe slide over to Vegas while I'm in that area? You just never know.
That's a good distance between Vegas and San Francisco.
Yeah, well, kind of. I've been known to end up in Vegas. Some crazy trips for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I was in years ago here. Hell, it wasn't that many years ago. I forget which airline it was. Did a flight from here to Denver. Frontier had just started, and they were like $49 or something each way, or $29, whatever it was. And I just went out to the airport and hopped on a plane. I was single. Hopped on a plane, flew out to Colorado, rented a car, went to Keystone, went up to the top of the mountain, looked around, and I was like, wow, this was really nice. Now I'm kind of bored. And I booked a flight to Vegas from the top of the mountain, drove down, ended up in Vegas for 3 or 4 days. It was a fun and profitable trip. So,
have you played golf in Vegas?
No. We went there for a golf trip recently, and I had an injury.
Oh.
But I do have credit at a couple of courses there. So,
are you familiar with Coyote Springs?
I have heard of Coyote Springs.
You have to go.
Okay.
It's north of Vegas. It's going to take you about 50 minutes to drive there.
Okay.
You have to go.
All right. I want to play the course out there that...
the rendition one?
Is it Shadow...
Shadow Creek.
Shadow Creek, yes. And when we went out there...
Can you get on?
Well, I thought I could, and I went out there, and for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you have to be invited. Mm-hmm. Everything is complimentary, and I do my fair share of gambling, and when the casino host looked up my action, and she goes, well, your average bet, it qualifies, but your win-loss ratio doesn't. And I said, what do you mean? And she goes, well, you're actually up this year. And I said, well, what does it take to play Shadow Creek? And she goes, you have to average losing $30,000 every time you come to an MGM casino.
Whoa.
And I said, so are you telling me everybody that plays golf at Shadow Creek on the weekend's a loser? And she goes, I'm trying not to tell you that, but yeah, pretty much. But it's
and for those who don't know, Shadow Creek is actually where Tiger and Phil Mickelson a few years ago, they've always done a lot of these golf. It started in like 2000 when Tiger was at his peak prime. He's 24 years old. He's killing the golf world. And they started with these one-on-one match plays. He did one with Sergio, with David Duval at the time, did one with Phil, and it was usually around Thanksgiving at different places. And then ultimately they did, and it was called The Match.
That's right.
And they've morphed into a two-man thing with Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, with like Justin Thomas and Phil, or Tiger if he's healthy. And they did one at Shoutout Creek, at least one. And that was the Phil Tiger one that went to like extra holes. It was
when
really
they had
sloppy.
the lights or something.
Yeah, they had to bring the lights out,
Yeah.
and they literally like they went to like 10 or 12 playoff holes, and it wasn't great golf. Like they just weren't both in their best form. But Shoutout Creek is
Well,
wow.
I'll be going
If you
back
can get
out
on
there.
man.
They will allow you to play there Monday through Thursday, and it's $1,000 a round.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to spend a little less money, so the story behind Coyote Springs, and I can't remember if I've talked about this once on the podcast. It's either 99, State Route 99. It's something just due north of Vegas. And right before the big bust in like 08, 09, 07, it was materializing, right? They wanted to build a second Las Vegas north of there and start with, a hotel, and they had 5 courses they were going to build, and they have a one driving range was going to service, like this one massive practice facility was going to service these 5 courses, and they were going to build homes, and they were trying to get all these developers. Well, the only thing that got built was one golf course, Coyote Springs, and this massive practice range that was designed for like 5 golf courses. And so you're gonna, it's the desert, of course, right? And you're gonna drive and drive and drive, and all of a sudden you're just gonna see this
Green,
beautiful golf course. Now it's not Shoutout Creek, but it's worth going.
Yeah, awesome.
It's a great destination, and I think it's appealing because obviously you also have St. George and Mesquite that are nearby that people will go to. It's not too far from Vegas if you want to play some golf up there. I've played the TPC Las Vegas over in Summerlin.
That's where we were supposed to play. Exactly.
And then there's one in Maryland called Renditions, but I can't remember the name of it. I've played it, but they replicate all of the cool holes in like Scotland or Ireland. Yeah. And that we played that, loved it. That was a lot of fun. A lot of hidden pot bunkers. Watch out, right? And they have the famous like road hole, replica. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole bunch of other courses, but they seed. I think in September and October is actually when they do a lot of their air rating, where we used to get more, at least from the Mid-Atlantic and down here, maybe it's more in the springtime. You do the overseeding and you sand your greens, and it sucks if you're playing because you're like, I didn't know they were doing maintenance. And Vegas is on this weird schedule where they do a lot of it in September. So a lot of the courses we wanted to play where we couldn't get on.
They definitely do a lot in September because when we were trying to get on Shadow Creek, the guy that I talked to, Spasikas, listen, wait and come in like late October or so.
Have you ever played the course at the Wynn Casino?
No.
That looks really nice.
It does. And I tried to get on there, and you have to be a guest at the Wynn to book more than 30 days in advance. And when I wasn't staying there, so when I tried to book the trip, they were like, "Sorry, we're full."
Really?
So we got one at. Have you heard of Bally High?
I have.
Okay. Well, we got tee times there that we had to cancel also. But from what I hear, Bally High is a fun course to play at. They have interesting setup there.
Well, I was telling my son, I guess I can share this on this podcast. I was telling my son that one of the courses we went to, you know what? And I think it was it wasn't it was some other golf course. It's funny how like time passes and you can't remember the details, right? And you're like, what course is that? But my buddy and I go out there and there was a bachelor party type thing going on. We get out of the car. We're kind of like putting on our shoes in the parking lot, and like these escorts show up. And I'm like I was a very low handicap, and I don't drink. I don't care anything about that part of golf. I'm not a beer drinking, golf.
Right.
I'm there to play and be better and to beat my buddies. And if there's money on the line, I'm there to win money, that type of thing. So I don't have any real tolerance for that. You can have all your fun, but just don't slow me down. Mm-hmm. So the starter says, hey, you guys actually were supposed to be behind them. Why don't you go start on hole 3? And then when you're done, come back around and play 1 and 2 and you're gone, because they're gonna have something going on. I'm like, okay. So we go over to hole 3. Well, guess what? The group in front of us is like 2 guys and 2 escorts. But it's a par 3, and they wave us through. Thank goodness. They wave us through, but I don't like starting on a par 3. And we didn't have it. We didn't hit the driving range. You know, we've been playing all week, and sometimes like, all right, we've been playing all week. We'll be fine. We don't need to hit the range. We don't have time because we want to go play another round after this. And he's like, he was a little affected, I think, by the fact that more so than I was like that on the green, they stepped to the side. There's like these 2 escorts and these 2 guys waiting for us to play through. I hit it to like a foot. I got a tap in birdie, and he sprays it into the woods. And I'm like, let's just go. Let's just go to 4. And then when we come back around, we'll play 3 again. Because let's just get away from this circus that has just formed in front of us, right? And like, let's just focus on golf.
Yeah, when I was looking at the Bally High, they're called par mates. Par mates. And I called to inquire about the par mates, and he goes, "You do realize that these aren't real caddies, don't you?" I was like, it was pretty humorous.
That's funny.
Yes.
Give me a Pebble Beach story.
Oh gosh.
And should anybody listening not be aware of Pebble Beach, and we're probably going to get into a lot of golf talk here. It's in the Bay Area. It's way up on the cliffs. Beautiful. Carmel, I guess it's like
Monterey.
Carmel.
Yes.
It's one of those things. If you're a golfer, they have the PGA Tour plays the Pebble Beach Pro-Am out there every year. They've had the U.S. Open there.
And in fact, we went out there the day they were. I think the next day they were closing the course for the U.S. Open.
Really?
So when we went and played it, they had all the bleachers set up, everything was ready to go, and the rough, you know, a U.S. Open rough, and it was just brutal. And on the very first tee box, the caddies, they're like, y'all should, instead of playing it out of the rough, you should just let us go get your ball out of the rough and throw it into the fairway. So this rough is treacherous. And I was like, "Are you kidding me, dude? You think we came out here specifically because the rough is like this?"
Yeah.
So that was a real thrill getting to play out there. I think it was like 10 or 14 days before the tournament that they closed it up, but they had everything already in place. It was really nice.
Do you have any particular great memory of?
Well, I've birdied the which one is the iconic par 3?
Number 7.
Number 7. I've birdied that one twice. So
downhill, like 107 yards.
Yes, that's about how far I hit it. So, but no, that was my fun for that trip.
What do they charge you? Like 500 around there?
A little more than that these days. I think it's like 650, 700 around. Wow. And that's without caddies, which you're going to need too.
So it's at least 1,000 probably.
Yeah,
when it's all said and done.
Yes, it's a bucket list golf trip for sure.
What about Bandon Dunes?
Have not played that.
You got to go to Bandon Dunes. That's just north of there.
We play Spyglass and Pebble and Spanish Bay there.
Have you heard about Bandon Dunes?
No, I haven't.
Oregon.
Okay. Yes, I have heard of it.
It is so you're always going to hear people talk about links golf. That is a false statement for the most part in the U.S. There is no true links golf other than at Bandon Dunes. Because links golf is you use the ground. It's a totally different game, right? That's when you watch the British Open and they're hitting the ball and it'll roll 50 yards literally, or they'll putt it from 40 yards out because it's a really tight fescue. And they don't really play what we do in the States is you hit a high ball, we have soft greens, it plugs, right, and releases. So it's kind of more of a target thing than really the art form of when golf was invented, and you use the ground and you use your imagination and the undulation, all that. Oregon, Bandon Dunes it is the closest thing. If it is, and people who have played St. Andrews and played everywhere in Scotland, have played links golf, they will say this is exactly that, which is a totally different experience.
Awesome.
And they have 5 courses now, and it rates Pacific. There's Bandon Dunes was the original course, and it's the same. It's not as expensive as Pebble. I think it's $240 for your first round, and then the replay round is like 140 or something like that. And then they also have a par 3 course, which is spectacular. And if you've played 36 holes that day, then you get to play the par 3 for free. Otherwise, it's like $110. But Pacific Dunes rates as if you look at, like, if they were to poll PGA Tour players, they're one of their favorite golf courses in both difficulty and beauty is Pacific Dunes. And then there's also Bandon Trails, which comes off of the cliffs, off of the ocean, and you're playing more of the mountain course. And then there's Old McDonald, which it's just a brutal test of the wind. It's just bunkers and open, like there's no trees or any sort, and it's good luck. It's not I don't like playing Old McDonald. And then there's a new one I've never played, but their customer service is off the charts, and it's kind of, I don't know if at Pebble, if you stay like in a hotel and they shuttle you to all the places. I mean,
Correct.
it's the same thing with Bandon. Like you're on the property.
Yes.
So as long as you stay on the property, then the range, the cart shuttle that takes you to the range starts at like 5 a.m. before even the sun comes up.
Right.
And you're on the range practicing, and then we didn't pay for caddies because my buddy has 5 kids. I've got 4 kids at the time, and it was just enough for me to fly out there and go experience it, right? And we felt like idiots because we were like the only ones that had push carts, and everyone else was paying for caddies. But I just freed up some extra cash to play some extra rounds.
Right.
It was, and he got a hole-in-one on the par 3 course. And by the time, and we're dead tired, and you have to walk, right? There's no carts.
Correct.
Right, so you're walking the whole day. But it's not, even though it was like June, it doesn't get too hot. And I think Pebble might be the same. It doesn't get too warm.
I've played there a bunch of times, and it's never been warm.
Yeah, it's I think Bandon is consistently like in the 50s. Like it'll get into the 60s, and it might dip into the 40s, but it's kind of this weird consistent weather all year. The rain comes through, just comes and goes throughout the day. But the customer service, so he gets a hole-in-one, and I guess it happens a lot on a par 3 course. Of course, it's going to happen a lot. And so we come back, and the guy asks, "Hey, how'd you do?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, we did fine. We had a good time. Any holes in one?" "Yeah, I got a hole-in-one on number 10. By the time we got back to our room, we walk into like the lodge we were staying in. They had a framed picture of number 10 for him as a gift.
Awesome.
They had radioed it in, and then when we went to dinner, he got like free dessert, and everyone was clapping for him like, "This is amazing."
And then he got the bar tab at the end of the night.
Yeah, and then everyone is, after you've walked 36 and you've walked another 18 of par 3 holes, you just want to go to dinner and hit the hot tub and go to bed and do it all over again.
Mm-hmm.
I highly recommend Bandon Dunes.
I will check it out.
Give me a good gambling story. Do you have a good
God.
gambling on the golf course, and when you just
I'd be embarrassed to tell you some of the gambling stories on the golf course that I've had, but yeah, I've had some good ones. Some fairly high stakes matches.
Yeah,
not
nothing too.
We'll keep it in the 4 to 5 figure range. Put it that way, but a lot of fun. A lot of fun gambling on the golf course. I've got a lot of great gambling stories, but they'd be too embarrassing, I think. But no, I've had some great runs at casinos, and I've had some really horrible ones. And it's amazing when I quit drinking how much better my gambling results became.
Yeah.
You actually have enough sense to get up and leave the blackjack table.
What about gambling on the golf course? Just any really great moments where you dug deep, you knew you needed a shot, you needed to hit the green.
Oh yeah, definitely. I've had. I still can remember playing out at Hampton Cove, and my best friend and his brother, who's also a very good friend, short-sighted myself, and all the money was on the line, and I hear the guy go, "There's no way he can get this up and down. This is a tough shot." And this is a guy that's famous for opening his mouth and having bad things happen to him. So, I chipped it in on him, on those guys. And that's a good one. I can, yeah. When you play as much golf as I think you and I have, you've pretty much seen it all. I've had a few hole-in-ones. I've had 3.
Have you?
And I love to gamble, and I love gambling on the golf course.
Where did you have holes in one?
One at Hampton Cove, one at Cherokee Ridge,
Okay,
and make that two at Hampton Cove and one at Cherokee Ridge.
so local.
Yeah.
Look at this photo. Tell me, this is from your guys' website, and I don't know if you know this guy, but I couldn't pass up the chance.
I do know that guy.
Do you have any idea? Tell us who he is, and then what was the result of the shot?
I have no idea what the results are, but that's Jimmy Dunaway, and that's probably about typical for where he would be playing.
His white shorts are going to take
Yes.
a beating after that shot,
But
right?
look at those nice reflections in the water there. That's hilarious.
I had to show that to you.
Yes, that's awesome.
I was thinking once. Did you do some competitive golf too? Like you have your league, but did you ever play like stroke play tournaments and stuff?
In my youth, yeah. But I'll play. I play a lot of tournaments, but nothing, too competitive. They're all charity events. So yeah,
That was great. We used to in the Washington area. I belonged to a golf club. I wouldn't call it a country club necessarily. It was way out. It was called Stone Lee in Round Hill, Virginia. Scottish lady designed it. Wickedly tough, and it was extremely tough when it first opened. And by the time I joined it, they had made some changes. Beautiful stone walls, like date back to like 1750. On this farm that they created the course. So ours was like really tough, and we didn't have the budget to really cut our greens tight and roll them like a lot of the high dollar country clubs did. But they formed what was called the B League. They had an A League. A League was basically, scratch, your one handicaps, your two handicaps. But it was there wasn't that many players that could always kind of perform at that level. And it was a very short season. It was in the spring, which is the worst time to play golf because you never know what kind of chill you're going to get or rain or what wind. But the B team, the handicap range was like 4 through 16.9.
Oh, perfect.
And then you could play other clubs, and it was like on a Saturday, and so it was 2-man better ball match play, and we would have six matches at each location, and in those 6 matches, 2 of the matches were like A flight players, 2 were B and C, just kind of like handicap range, right? You're 4 to your 8, you're 8 to 12, and you're 12 to like 17, and so I was playing it like a 4.5, a 5, and then if I got lower than that, then I was ineligible, and then couldn't play anymore. Right, I'd have to wait for my handicap to come.
So you
back
had
up.
to sandbag a little bit to stay in the league. Is that what you're saying?
There was a lot of people. It's funny when you look back at like the history where I always wanted to be better, and I wasn't necessarily trying to play golf just to play in that league, but certain people every year they're like still a 7. Like you never get better than a 7, sir. And I'm looking at your scores, and it should be going up to an 8, or it should be going down to a 5. And yet you're somehow always a 7 when it comes to competing in this league. But it was fantastic because all of the clubs had some budget amount to support the B League. And you could go and play, and all the food was kind of on them. And then they would have a nice gathering afterwards. And then the nice country clubs, they have like a men's locker room, and they're playing cards, and you could order really, really good food, and then we would have these matches. And I just always loved to compete. But it was funny when I had first joined, I was always like a 10 to 12 handicap. I could never play enough, could never practice enough because I was just a public golfer, right? But then when I joined a club, now I had access to golf every day. And I'm hitting balls literally every day because I'm excited and my schedule permitted it. And then I would start playing as often as I could play, and my handicap just dropped. So it's like I'm in the process of dropping, and this is always what's funny with competition and amateur competition. Like, look, I'm posting my scores every time I play, but as you get better, like your precision gets better, or the range of your scores.
Your standard deviation,
the standard deviation drops.
Absolutely.
So you're no longer shooting like an 89 and a 74.
Correct.
You're now getting down to like you're kind of a 78, 79, 80. It gets tighter and tighter, then you get down to like 74, 75, whatever it might be. So I'm in this process where I once shot 71 at my home course just with some buddies, but then the next day I shoot 84. So I knew I had it in me, but I wasn't playing enough where I was becoming more consistent and that standard deviation was decreasing. So we played this match against these guys. And I don't know, sometimes also for me, I just got up for the match. I would think about it all week. Couldn't wait to play on Saturday. It's going to take us 5 hours to play this round. No one's pushing us, right? We're there to compete and we're there to beat them. They were from Fairfax Country Club. So they come out, and I think I bogeyed the first hole, and then I parred the second. We had a really tough beginning. Well, then I chip in for eagle on a par 5. Then I birdie the next hole, which is a par 3. Then I eagle the next par 5. These guys are incensed. And then we get to the next hole, is a par 3. It's about 200 yards away. And at the time, I wasn't even hitting hybrids. I was hitting long irons. So I'm hitting like a 3 iron, and it's tracking. And the ball is in the air, and it's tracking towards the pin. Hasn't even landed yet. And this guy just starts laying out the expletive. You mother sandbagger. And I'm like, the ball hasn't even landed yet. And of course, it lands about 2 feet away, and I make birdie. So I'm basically 6 under. Well, 5 under because I bogeyed the first hole. They were not happy. And I'm like, look, they're like, I am not a sandbagger. I just shot 84 last week. I'm just having a good day. It is my home course.
Right.
But it just was like, it was fun. But at the same time, I hated that. I always sometimes didn't like handicap competition just because of that person that's not honest. And you just have that awkward, you have that awkward like exchange with them. You know what I mean?
That's why
or sometimes people just have a good day.
That's why it kills me at charity events when somebody will come in, their team's like 26 under, and you're like, come on, guys, it's a charity event. You really don't need to be doing that. No, we all know y'all couldn't possibly have shot that, but
yeah,
I don't take it too seriously. I think that I really enjoy it because I'm extremely competitive. I mean, I played in a group yesterday, and everybody put in $3, and you'd have thought that it was $30,000 on the line, and I was so mad on the last hole that I finished second instead of first, and I was like, I got to keep reminding myself this is $3 here. It's not the end of the world.
What handicap you playing till now?
I'll shoot. I don't have an official handicap, but I'll shoot anywhere from 78 to 83 pretty much every time I tee it up.
Yeah.
Same little range like you were saying about the better you get, the smaller that variance, that standard deviation, it's in fact, I did an analysis of the whole Hampton Cove Golf League. I was trying to show these guys. I said, y'all got to realize that the group that's going to win this is the group that has the lower standard deviation. It's just they're consistent, and that's what it takes. Everybody's like, oh, as long as you shoot your handicap, you'll do fine. And I'm like, well, that's easy for a 2 or 3 handicapper to do, but you throw a 20 handicapper out there and ask them to shoot 20 handicap every time.
Yeah,
it ain't going to happen.
Yeah. The thing that was always hard was when you don't get stroke. I'm not getting strokes, but I'm playing someone. I'm giving them strokes. We come to like the number 1 handicap hole, which is already like difficult for me to even par sometimes because it's a difficult hole, and they get like 2 strokes.
Right.
So if they end up parring, I have to eagle to push.
Yeah.
I always hated that. Yeah. Anything else you want to cover?
No, I'd love to cover a lot of gambling stories, but boy, they are. Whew, I've seen it all at the casinos. I do have one that
please.
Back when Harrah's and Tunica opened, I got 2 quick ones. Back when Harrah's and Tunica opened, they were shooting ads for the casino, and we were sitting at the blackjack table, and they said, "Hey, we'd like to film y'all. Will you sign these release forms and all that?" And the dealer dealt 7 blackjacks and 1 to themselves. And I was like, and the guy that was shooting the ad, he's like, cut. And nobody's ever going to believe that. But I've never seen anything like that in my life. And another one, I was taking a break from blackjack.
Oh, so it wasn't by design.
No.
Wow.
It was for real. They were we were playing cards.
Wow.
And they were filming it. And I was
Wow.
like, you got to be kidding me. But here's one that I only play blackjack. And this was years ago. I was taking, 10-minute break from blackjack. And I sat down at the roulette table. And they went to spin the ball. And it went flying through the air and popped me in the eye. And I made, jokingly, I made a big production out of it. And I was like, oh my God, is there an attorney in the house? so then I put like $10 or whatever on the number. And I said, just so y'all know, if this hits, this will show y'all that this game is fixed, because I'm sitting here threatening to sue this place. But damned if my number didn't come up. And I was like, that's it. That just proves it right there.
Wow.
You get hit in the eye with the ball,
They're gonna make
and then your number hits the very next spin. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Why is it you only play blackjack when you go to a casino?
Because I like it. I like the fast action. I don't have the patience for poker.
Yeah.
I like to play one-on-one. I like to get up early in the morning and go down and be the only one at the table and play for ever how long it takes. I'm usually, I don't stay at the table a long time. If I hit a good run, it's time to get up and leave.
You have a favorite hotel you stay at?
I stay at Bellagio. Usually.
Okay.
I may try the Wynn next time just so I can play the golf course.
Yeah, I was at the Venetian for a conference in October, and man, it's just amazing. Every time I go to Vegas, I'm just amazed at the amount of money that those hotels they're just spectacular. And I had a really good view of the Wynn golf course out of my window, and I actually purposely sat there and just kind of like, I wonder what kind of play they get. Not that many, but man, it's beautiful.
No, that's the thing on Shadow Creek. She told me that the host told me, she said it's not unusual at Shadow Creek to have maybe 2 foursomes a day.
Wow.
That's all that'll be out there. She said everything's free. She said you go in the pro shop and you say, I need 2 dozen balls, I need this, this, and this. It's all complimentary.
And so like all of the casinos are floating it, I guess, or
no, just MGM.
Just MGM.
Just MGM.
Okay.
MGM.
It's an MGM property.
Correct.
Okay. Well, Bill Collins, man, it's been a pleasure having you.
Well, it's been a pleasure to be here and discussing PokerCows and golf.
Yeah, I'm excited for PokerCows, and we were gonna join last night, but at the time we were doing my other son's birthday, and none of us were like in front of a laptop. But we're definitely gonna. And you know what's interesting? Chess, for example, I was going to mention this to you. Like, chess is having this resurgence. There's this huge interest. I saw a picture of Mike Tyson and Schwarzenegger float around. It's from years ago, like playing chess. But all of a sudden, chess is now like becoming more mainstream,
right?
And more people are playing it. And I'm just excited for you because I think number one, you got the right idea with the virtual. And more things that are virtual, right? That's the world we live in. Whether we like it or not, whether we're traditionalists, we're old fogies, we want it the way we used to be. Nope, this is the world we live in now. There's that, and then I think there's also people at some time they'll realize there's got to be more than Texas Hold'em. There's got to be more than this. And there's so many great games out there.
That's what I'm hoping, and the platform that we've developed, it really enables us, I was just telling somebody that I don't even think that poker is the big thing for this platform. I mean, the way it's designed, I said I can see grandparents playing with grandkids and playing Old Maid or whatever card games.
Go fish.
Exactly. That,
War.
Yes.
Slapjack.
There's a lot of different things that you can throw on this platform.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. I'm ready to get it going.
Well, again, another shout out to Activate. That promo video they did, that's really cool. They did a really good job.
The whole
with that.
website, I think they did a good job on. The website's got the video going at the beginning of it. I think it looks great.
Yeah. Well, all the best to you. I look forward to progress, checking it out. We're definitely going to play. All of my kids are going to be here this summer. So
Awesome.
we'll dive in. I think I signed up last night, actually.
Awesome.
And we'll go from there, and then hopefully we can touch base again in the future.
Sounds great. Troy,
right,
thanks
Bill.
for having me on.
Hey,
It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome, and enjoy Pebble when you get back
Hey,
out there for
I
Halloween.
will, for sure.
I can't wait to hear about it.
All right. Thank you.